And with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Scott Nydam, who is the founder of Silver Stallion, a Gallup, New Mexico nonprofit located at the crossroads of the Navajo, Dene, and Zuni nations. Scott was a former professional cyclist and coach with BMC Racing, and is also the champion of New Mexico's first Riding for Focus program. He's really helping to build incredible pathways for youth to engage in cycling through a number of important collaborations and partnerships. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Can you hear me? And Esther, thanks for all this opportunity. I think I'm a thumbs up. All right. Hi, Tasha. My name's Scott Nydam, and yeah, I'm living here in Gallup, New Mexico. We started Silver Stallion Bicycle and Coffee Works in June of 2018, and it's been an adventure and a very steep learning curve. They say you learn more from failure than you do from success, and that's why I'm getting to be so smart these days. I guess what I'd first like to just share. Got to get my kids from school. Sorry, that's the alarm. What I'd first like to share is how the bike has been a radical tool for me. This post-race life that I have, and I'll tell you about that more, and relationship to the bike, but a growth in a way that I, at one point, gave 100% of myself to the bike. And upon finishing racing, I thought everything was downhill from there. But I have to say that I believe in the bike as a tool. I believe in the bike in general more than I ever have in my life. And it was so happened to be that I was biased kind of getting into all this. But it's sort of like I didn't realize the brick of gold under the box I was sitting on the whole time. So I hope to share this story about this nonprofit engagement in rural New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, that I hope is perhaps something you all could take away from. With that, I'll go to the next slide, just with the arrows, or how do I control? Here's a quick overview of what I feel like is basically my PhD thesis of sorts, and here I am defending it. But you'll see at the very top of that pinnacle is Outride, and below that is, I'll explain all this, but our Devo programming, development programming that was inspired by a partner in Durango Devo, that feeds into what was more initially put out and believed in, which was starting a NICA team in the region, not only here in Gallup, but also the Navajo Nation. And then the next further down is more of where the ridership exists upon myself coming here to the region 10 years ago now, which is more of an enduro downhill, steep history in BMX. And then our partnership with Free Bikes for Kids. Below that is our mobile ride center, our dynamic solution to some problems the bike industry has challenged against it in the region. And then Project Bike Tech, which is like Outride, Riding for Focus, another school-based program. And way below that is the symbol of our stallion and the Black Apron Bicycle Mechanic program that is initially what we're a nonprofit for with the Secretary of State of New Mexico. So next slide. So these are a few things I would like to, I guess, just throw out there for hopefully to maybe circle around on, or also just think on. But Silver Stallion Bicycle Coffee Works is a nonprofit that is to empower and educate youth and young adults in the bicycle mechanic, repair, and specialty coffee industries. there's a long story as to why those two go together. And I think there's a lot of related experience around the globe as to why those two go together. But it also, as far as a nonprofit that is seeking to empower youth and young adults to develop their own agency, not empower with agency, but to develop their own agency. Obviously, you got to pedal your own bike. But the kind of thought is that there's thousands of doors to walk through around the globe, to walk in confidently and ask for a job, or at least just be confident if you know how to wrench on a bike or pull a shot and do some little latte art. So that was our initial goal. I'll get to tell you how we've had to go through the back door in a lot of ways. So just to breeze through this, what does it take to go from zero to flourishing? And what I mean by flourishing is living with that agency. And in this case, with the bike, and a very close relationship that so many of us, I assume, here on the call, has a hard time stepping away from. And what exactly does zero look like? What does exactly the absence of the bike industry across 27,000 square miles look like? And just a few statements to rattle off. There's no equity without empathy to those more challenged, not underserved locations, but in this case, unserved locations as far as bikes go. The bulk of this development of going from zero to flourishing on a bike is surprisingly intangible, meaning relational, meaning what Joy was talking about, centered upon trust. And our job with our bicycle youth programs, we're primarily addressing a health concern. The economics come, they trickle afterwards, right? And much to Joy said, and emphasizing trust, what I've learned in this is that trust already exists. It's not a matter of creating trust, of a white boy coming to a reservation and creating trust. It's trust, and families, communities are already within that trusting relationship. In this case, with the bike, we're just catering the resources to those networks, to those communities. And this is a big one that I would wish to elaborate on, and it probably has to do with maybe another discussion. But the solutions to this diversity, equity, inclusivity initiative, or what the industry is up against, those solutions are not in the industry. Those solutions are in the communities they're hoping to include. And I think that's actually kind of just a value, an appreciation that I think the industry is yet to adopt. And perhaps because it hasn't had a track record of success stories. But in my experience of trying to be a nonprofit executive director and push things, programming in an effective, careful, appropriate manner, and all of what that means, which that doesn't really quite speak to the need of the empathy involved in so many layers of this effort. But I think that the next statement, that sovereignty is a word that can guide these efforts, meaning that inclusivity kind of implies getting out in somewhere else, whereas sovereignty has to do with the community that exists. And if there was a word that I'd like to put in the dictionary, I think that inclusivity is sort of out. I think that literally, that it should be outclusivity, that we need to get out the doors like we do when we go on bike rides, and get out together and have that reciprocal, mutual, appreciative relationship. And grow into it, I would hope. Everything needs to happen is another tenet. And once we adults get our act together, the beautiful thing, and back to my belief in the bike will do the good work for us, for the youth and adults. Real quickly, I guess, could you push play on the video?
So my name is Scott Nydam. I am the founder and executive director of Silver Stallion Bicycle and Coffee Works based in Gallup, New Mexico. We're a small nonprofit providing job skills for bicycle mechanic repair as well as specialty coffee services. Around all that, we're offering a number of different programs in youth development as far as bicycle riding teams and trying to create sort of a scene and an infrastructure for bicycles to become a viable piece of somebody's life. So where we're starting, working back from that, is realizing here in this region, there are certain blank spots. And one of the blank spots on the Navajo Nation is across 27,000 square miles, there's not a single bike shop. The absence of that and all the barriers that exist, the decision of whether or not a kid's gonna make a bike part of their life is sort of already decided for them, for the most part. And what our goal is to do is to make that their decision. So to address that need and that gap, we came up with this idea of a mobile ride center. We pitched the idea of doing a COVID relief effort of doing free mechanical repair to those who are in need, with bicycle shops being deemed as an essential service in the community. If it's essential service, it's a right, in a sense, to have. And if there's a systemic reason for these things not existing in places like the Navajo Nation, there needs to be a systems approach towards addressing that. And that's what the Outdoor Equity Fund provided us, is the heavy lift to make up for these gaps in the industry, to keep kids riding and keep adults riding.
Thanks. Here's a little speech. And this is, I guess, based on truth. And this is an analogy, and it'll tie up later. But if you were to bake bread at home, you would need flour, you would need water. You don't need a starter, you don't need yeast, or don't need salt or olive oil. But you need flour, and you need water, and you need an oven, and you need a baker to put it in the oven, take it out. So next slide. To create a flourishing cycling ecosystem from zero, you need to address the material capital. You need to address the intellectual capital, which is kind of two-pronged, which has mechanic repair as well as skills and ridership. And you also need social capital. If you don't have one of those three, flourishing it doesn't happen. And in this case, where we're going from zero to flourishing, from ground zero, from code red, from unserved bicycle industry communities, you also need aid. Oh, I crossed out A, you need nonprofits. Next slide. So back to the truth. And this is just something that's going to kind of guide my thinking and how I'll try to explain the cycle of what we're doing here with our programming. This is a group of kids down in Zuni Pueblo this summer. We did a camp. And next slide. We started, check out the Outride jersey represented there. I started the camp with them talking about a story that I've talked about ever since, sort of like walking away from racing and walking away from the battle of being a road cyclist and all that. And that's that of the hero's journey. And I kind of told them the myth of, sorry, I'm not referencing things. but basically that the hero's journey means that we all need to be the hero of our own journey. I can't be your hero, you can't be mine. And I can't pedal your bike for you, you can't pedal mine. I can't decide where you go on a bike, you can't decide. You have to do it yourself. You have to, but we can do it next to each other, but we have to sort of take on that ownership. Next slide. And I really feel like that little kind of perspective initially with that group made the whole week change and go better. If even for kids going from 0 to going for longer rides within the week. And I think that you'll see throughout like the programming and getting the catalyst and the initiation of ridership happening, it has to do with adventure. It has to do with fun. And that's pretty simple. But once you kind of get into that fun, you get into a growth phase where you're gaining new skills, and suddenly you realize like, whoa, this is cool. And I asked a friend, Dom, who's in our programming, who just within the last 2 years got started. And now he's a People for Bikes ambassador. He's riding every kind of bike. He's one of our coaches. He's already a PMBIA, thanks to Durango Devo's help, professional mountain bike instructor, NICA coach. But when do you go from like riding a bike to becoming a cyclist? When did that happen? And I don't know if anybody could ever put a finger on exactly where that line is. And then once that revelation happens, and then once we all dive into our journeys, there's obviously like a gift that comes from it. And that's what we're all speaking about. That's what joy was joyful about. And then here we are returned to in the cycle where we start again. Next slide. So here's my story real quick. Starting in the northeast there, Mount Taylor Quadrathlon, which is actually northeast of me here. It's happens to be one of the 4 sacred mountains of the Diné Bikid, Dinétah Navajo Nation. A friend let me ride his road bike for the first time. I rode a road bike. I practiced in the parking lot the night before, and then did the bike ride, did the run, did the snowshoe, skied the snowshoe, and then everything back down again. And I fell in love. So I went back to Colorado, and there was my adventure. And then I went back to Totally Wired Cyclery, which is a coffee shop, bike shop. And I got more of my introduction involved. This is after college. Then I went off to Tasmania with my road bike. And that's where I was in this sort of intermediate lifestyle. And then I was becoming more independent with my racing. Came back to the US, plugged myself into racing, got a contract with BMC Racing Team, crashed myself out of my own career due to ADD, and that's another conversation. But then I stayed on with the team and coached the BMC development team. And then I think where I'm turning now is working on that gift of what the bike has been in my life, and figuring how we can push it over the top and have it roll downhill towards others. And I think that yes, involved in all that is my, now on the top of the symbol there, my place in the industry, my desire to be involved in it, and all of our collective need and requirement to address diversity, equity, inclusivity. I developed my ride skills. I got advanced ride skills that led into coaching and management of and then here we are again. Next slide. So, Silver Stallion Bicycle Works is, as I said, an educational empowerment in mechanics. We'll just keep it to the bike right now. Organization. So, what did we start with? We started with Outride. In a sense of, we started with youth development, in the sense that there wasn't a prolific ridership in our region. There were some people who had bikes, but they kind of were more transplant, most of them. Many people, few, some of our awesome coaches, Vincent and Frank, Lorenzo, and others have made the bike part of their life, kind of upon their, against the odds, I would say. And so my first initiation was to take care of the material needs. And we got the first Riding for Focus program going here in New Mexico. So then in that process, in the growth process, in the thinking process, really what now we've landed on is that once those skills, safety, common speaking language happens within the school setting, then there's opportunity to make that part of your lifestyle outside the doors. And that's where we started Devo clubs, which is now educating and bringing in some foresight into this new thing in each of these kids' lives. And then it turns around toward more of the advanced Project Bike Tech Park Tool School that we now have got it started. That's leading again back into not only the ridership development, but also the intellectual mechanic, building out mechanics. And now just 4 years into it, we got an enduro team started, and we have a bike shop that's hopefully going to open for real to the public soon, post-pandemic. Next slide. So quickly, in the same pattern, Riding for Focus, a school-based program, Project Bike Tech, a school-based program for ridership skills, mechanic skills. This essentially is an equity initiative about getting that expedited leg up within rural communities. And then what comes next within our programming is an introductory ride and mechanic lifestyle, like in the symbol, the Devo and the NICA programming. And that feeds into the intermediate independence of it all. And then once there's a bit more camaraderie community, it's fed into the advanced lifestyle. And then what that develops is one's own personal sense of agency. And then finally, justice doesn't happen overnight in places that have been so underserved and unjust history experience. Next slide. So here's Outride. It's a middle school program. It's skills, knowledge, physical education, and equity. This is a Riding for Focus program, school program partner. It provides a safe setting to get started. The next programming that we have is the Devo after school rides. Durango Devo is I would say a lifestyle ridership oriented program that's based on fun and camaraderie. And they have been hugely effective in helping us get started. But very much to the kind of core concept of, I think, across at probably guaranteed in every situation of startups, is that things are going to look different in each community. And there needs to be that sort of flexibility in a big sort of sweeping way. Durango Devo, rather than small ride groups of 8 kids and 2 coaches, what we've discovered as the most effective way, and I think the most solid way, is we've created a MOU with the McKinley County Schools District, with the school counselors and the school social workers who have solicited more teacher volunteers, who got the administration to get the kids signed up and have waivers. All we do is show up with our blue truck, with our coaches, with our bikes, with our helmets, and then those kids are able to take off with things. So that's what Devo looks like for us. And that's where I put in that initial introductory catalytic phase. Next slide. And this is where we get into more of the formal ridership, a little bit more pursuant of things. This is where NICA has, come in, I guess, incredibly important in the sense of an incredible partner, a credible ally with all of its resources, but also in the sense of being in the same boat of requirement, in the sense that if we are able to get kids to participate in NICA, then we are successfully addressing all of those major needs with material, intellectual, and social. That participation in much of a way demands it. And this is intermediate. I've kind of already went through much of this, but this is coach mentored, team-based formal rides. And then beyond that, into more of the advanced, once kids have gone through one or two different seasons of NICA, that's where more of the advanced has taken place. And that's where Enduro has come in. Next slide. And another big partner for us is working with Free Bikes for Kids, which is back to the equity and the justice initiative of addressing, making sure that there's bikes at home for these kids who do want to pursue it. What we do is we hand out bikes to participants or families who are within our programs, so that when a kid gets a bike, they're not just getting a bike, they're getting a connection within this neural network. One thing I love to remind myself and others of is that if it wasn't for the bike in my life, I would not be speaking to any of you right now. I would not know thousands of people, or I don't know how many people I know, but like, it has made my life incredibly rich. And I think that's what this whole process provides for kids, is not just a good time and a good ride, but an incredible pursuant lifestyle with places to go and people to meet. Below that is our mobile ride center, which is a rural, dynamic bike shop on wheels that provides service, that puts on events. That's our dynamic creative solution to the absence of bicycle shops across a space as big as Ohio. Next slide. And back to the aforementioned Project Bike Tech, that is a fabulous partner that's feeding mechanics into what will be our Black Apron bicycle mechanic program at our shop with a recyclery. So there's the continuum. Next slide. There's some stats. We've distributed over 200 bikes, free bikes distribution. We've helped get 10 Outride Riding for Focus program schools started on Navajo. We've received 2 matching fund grants. We started 2 Gallup and Dene Comp NICA teams. We have 6 schools going across, 2 in Gallup and 4 on Navajo with Gallup-McKinley County Schools. That contains over 125 kids weekly participating. And free bike repairs over the long haul, we've done well over 1,000 bikes since the beginning of the pandemic, over a good 24 events. Next slide. I would love to tell you more stories. I'm going to finish up with a video, so please cut to the video. And there's Taven, and enjoy.
Super excited to be here with Scott Sports. We're incredibly lucky to be able to work with Silver Stallion, Durango Cyclery, and everyone else involved with Bike Tech, to be able to collect bikes from the community and work with alongside some amazing mechanics from all the local bike shops and all the folks from Bike Tech to be able to get them together. I think all in all, we rebuilt and refurbished close to 80 bicycles that Silver Stallion is going to take on back down to Gallup. And just to be a part of this and meet all these incredible people has been truly a privilege. And I'm so happy that Scott Sports has given us the ability to come down here and help out with this.
Oh.
My name's Chad Mikoff. I teach at Rehoboth High School and I teach the Project Bike Tech class. We've got 8 students here this weekend. Got to jump in with all these professional mechanics, apply skills we've already learned in class, continue them, and such a great exposure to see what's going on outside of just our classroom.
So yesterday evening, what did we do?
Yesterday evening, what did we do? We went on a cool ride. We got together with everybody. All the mechanics got together. We all introduced ourselves, and then we went on a little ride across town and then up some hills. And then after that, we went down the hill, and we had so much fun.
Oh, really? Oh, this is so hard. Wow! Oh.
So how was yesterday's ride?
Yesterday was gnarly. Some dudes got some hella air, bro. It was pretty crazy. Should have been there.
It's day 2 of bike mechanic work, and it's actually day 3 here at I forget what park this is actually.
So, trying to get everything organized so we're back in Big Wheel so we serve the kids on Nydam Nation.
So how did today's event go?
It was amazing. The whole weekend was incredible. Everybody showed up and just made this whole thing happen. And I feel really lucky to have been a part of all the different communities connecting with each other. I think it was 80 bikes we ended up building.
At the end of your life, whether it was Allah who was saying it, Elijah Muhammad, what would you like people to think about you when you've gone?
I'd like for them to say he took a few cups of love. He took 1 tablespoon of patience, 1 teaspoon of generosity, 1 pint of kindness. He took 1 quart of laughter, 1 pinch of concern, and then he mixed willingness with happiness. He added lots of faith, and he stirred it up well. Then he spread it over a span of a lifetime, and he served it to each and every deserving person he met.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Amazing, amazing video. We do have time for a few questions. And again, like that was just amazing to see all of these collaborations, coming together. And one of the questions that came in here was, how have parent, caregiver, and community attitudes towards cycling changed in the region since you've really kind of built up that mutual care and trust through the work there?
And that's a great question, and something to draw upon what Joy was saying about initially communities that are not cycling communities. There is a apprehension and there is a fear. Vincent Salabai, who's the Dene Comp now enduro coach, he works within health promotions, and he always talked about how so much of this needs to be visible and out in the open. In an educational standpoint, I guess what I try to say is that yeah, there's a number of barriers that initially are there that I perhaps don't see many, we all see our own things, but that proof is in the pudding. Parents are buying bikes. Real quick story about Lukaya in Navajo, in the town of Navajo. His mother, Rathina, said she got in trouble and she forced him to go to the Devo ride after school. He came back from the Devo ride, said, "Mom, thanks for making me go to the Devo ride." And then she goes, "Yeah, and now when we go to Albuquerque, we don't go to the mall anymore. He always wants to go to the bike shops." And I used to go in, but I don't know what they're talking about. So I just stay in the car. And then she goes, and he was busting tables at Earl's this summer. And he said to her, "Mom," she's sharing this with me unsolicited, "Mom, I think I'll bust tables again next summer, but then I think I want to be a bike mechanic." So those are the stories you get back. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And kind of following up on that, another question that just popped in was, all about, we've really obviously focused on getting more youth riding, but have you seen any kind of, trickle out effect in terms of also seeing more adults in the community getting excited to get out and ride on bikes as well?
Absolutely, yes. There's more bikes on bike racks and bikes on cars hanging out at tailgates than certainly when I moved to the region a while back. And, a big concept and one of the fundamentals is, if you want more kids on bikes, you do need more adults on bikes. We need more coaches. And one other add to that is we don't need, in order to go and catalyze and initiate ridership, all of us have a relationship to the bike at some level, and if, you don't have a well-seasoned experience with a bike, you're at a dinner party, people ask you if they ride because they're super riders, and you're like, no, I don't. We have a lot of adults, teachers, people who are concerned with kids' health, in health promotions or in school systems. And, we as adults need to go through some of the same things as these kids do. So once that's happening, and that's a great form of openness and mentorship for kids to see adults taking on things as well. So
yeah, that's incredible. And I think switching gears a little bit, we saw this as a theme in Joy's presentation, and I think also came up here is, we've seen representations from Scott or Santa Cruz or Specialized or Trek, all of these different brands. And I think really a lot of people, if you're working in a particular brand, they really focus on category exclusivity. And I think really what we've seen throughout all of these presentations, and really what works in communities, is that you can't have that, right? There really needs to be that idea of everyone kind of working together. And so I guess what recommendations might you give, or like how could we do better as an industry to really help support those types of collaborations and partnerships?
It's about what I said earlier about getting outdoors. It's about getting out and showing up. 80% of the big steps that I've made, Teal Stetson Lee, who was a former enduro and cross-country pro with Scott Sports, in the video there, she came down for a camp this summer. And then that made the event up in Durango and the bike drive go however percentage better. I think that I've said, like, the industry needs to do the heavy lift to kind of rearrange the furniture, maybe knock out a wall here and there. But ultimately that needs to happen, but also it's a grassroots eye-to-eye thing. And the one beautiful thing about the bike is that, this is quoting AJ up in Crown Point, is through the bike the connection, the relationship we all have to the bike transcends our differences. It puts a moratorium on a lot of those ways we define ourselves differently. It's like a little sanctuary of defining ourselves and what we have in common, which actually is more than, a flock of penguins has more diversity than the human species. But that through that, now I'm losing my train of thought, but through that commonality, I think that there's a beautiful opportunity to share rides and share it. And that's where I think the outclusivity is the way to go. on this, and that's been effective, and it's been fun, and you should all come down to Navajo.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. So my last question for you are, we've, seeing all of this work that's been done, what do you still see as, the biggest gaps in terms of support or in collaboration? What would you like to kind of have as your take home message in terms of, if you were trying to build this and, obviously making it fit in a different community, they're going to have their own approach to it, but, what might be those biggest areas of support that's needed that maybe are overlooked?
There's probably a lot of ways to answer that. Vincent Sean Price got us opportunity to go to the Be It Bicycle Leadership Conference in May, this past May. And Vincent Salabai went on stage. I think that and spoke about Danae spoke about getting ridership started and what it took and how he did it, and the unique story that he has, which is his story and who he's shared it with. In the discussions prior to that about diversity, equity, inclusivity from corporate leaders, from CEOs and executive directors, part of the speech, part of the mandates were listen to your staff, listen to the whole spectrum of people who are involved with your organization. And I felt like that was lip service. And I guess that's my criticism, is I think that even if you got to fake it, I think that the industry really needs to, I don't do this well, but make time. And I'm saying the same things I've heard over and over, but again, get out, bring everything you can to the door, but then let the relationships take it from there. And I think, yeah, I guess it's just it's sort of a little bit more of a proactive pursuit to shift the perspectives of the decision makers.
Thank you. And there was one more really good one that came in. I know we're close to time, but I do want to ask you because I think it's something that a lot of people will be interested in. So it seems that a major portion of, your project is driven by obviously your very high knowledge base of how to put this all together, as well as your experience with bikes. So how might we approach, other communities across the country that might also, live in a bike desert, for example, that would have a high barrier for entry to get started?
Well, I guess it's like you gotta take your cheat sheet of the material capital, intellectual capital, social capital. And I feel like as far as there's a lot of organizations and names that weren't listed there. And this is pared down to, I think, what is kind of the essential. And I think that leaning on organizations like Outride and the Riding for Focus program, as well as the fund, once things get outdoors into lifestyle, into pursuits and planning and growth and lessons and revelations, that lean on those. Project Bike Tech, get into schools. Rely on the trusted networks that exist already, is what I would say. And everyone's a cyclist, whether that be with legs or hands or we're all dynamic humans and athletes and have whatever it is. Either we like to exercise and flourish, or we love seeing our loved ones exercise and flourish. So I would really start with the trust. Here's what I would say, is that we're pushing things for so long, like pushing like a salesman, like, hey, the bike is really cool. Once we got back to answer the other questions, once families and parents and teachers and counselors were saying, hey, Sally or James, they're doing better. We love this. We want this. Oh, I want this for my kid. Once the push turns into a pull, I think that's where you start seeing really the difference. But again, fundamentally, it's not, the stallion is maybe the fascia that holds these different members together. They all need to be there. But ultimately the determining factor is in the community. And that's what's going to make it happen. It can't happen without that. But again, just like a blue truck can show up, cater a party, you can do the same thing with bikes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Scott, for really going in depth and showing us really how kind of all of the inner workings. I think there's going to be a lot of people who can take a lot of really inspiration away from this. So really, thank you for taking the time to really lay that out for us. And so what I want to say here is just, to really close out the summit. So I've been really, truly blown away by all of the incredible research and thoughtful dialogue today. Which is, of course, why we came together as a community to really create a space for researchers, for practitioners, for community leaders to share, relevant data, research, and work by some incredible programs across the country and across the world. We really hope to have equipped you with a bit more knowledge and data on how to advance youth and community well-being through cycling wherever you are. And I also just want to say a huge thanks to all of our presenters over these 2 days. I know each year we say we're going to, make it more compact, but it keeps growing and growing. And I think that's just a testament to all of the amazing work that's being done out there. So really thank you to you all, and as well as all of the attendees for sharing your experiences, your expertise, and really helping to make this event a success. I'd also really like to thank the incredibly dedicated Outride team. We had Kim, Lauren, Chaz, Tasha, Nick, really all coming together to help make this happen, as well as the amazing Outride ambassadors who came out yesterday and supported the summit. We'd also really like to thank Anthony, Ace, Michael, and the entire Specialized community for supporting our team throughout this event, making sure it runs smoothly as possible. We really couldn't have done it without you. So really, thank you. Just to wrap up, stay tuned over the next few days as we take some time to summarize all of these amazing stories and data that we've heard over the past 2 days and share them back to you in a way that you can use and bring actionable insights back to your communities. And this is really just the beginning. We definitely want to keep the wonderful conversations and collaborations going. It's been amazing to see everyone so active on the community boards and the app, so keep that up. We'll take a look through that and try to compile that down to share out all of these amazing resources everyone's been sharing. And we'll make much more progress helping to get more kids and communities on bikes if we all work together. One last plug, please keep an eye out for our next round of both the Outride Fund and the Riding for Focus grants. And if you want to learn more and stay in touch, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on Instagram. And we really look forward to continuing these conversations with you all. And after this incredibly inspiring couple of days, we're feeling more hopeful than ever that together we can outride anything. Thank you.